Welcome everybody to day 13 of the Shelter in Love series. So this is a series that you guys have asked for in the midst of this quarantine, in the midst of the shelter in place. And you wanted me to offer something that will offer not only just community, but also a spiritual perspective. And I went ahead and picked up friends of mine from across the globe. And I said, why don't you come and join me on the show instead of it being all about me? Can we make it a little bit of a dialogue, make it like a living room conversation? And to that effect, I have my dear friend Eric Kaufmann from San Diego joining us right now. Folks, I just want to tell you a little quick story about something that moved me so deeply that I chose to pick Eric to be on the show. Eric is an amazing individual. He's had a lifelong practice in Zen meditation. He spent a year in silence in a cabin in the woods in New Mexico. And then he also runs a very successful company out of San Diego, which does executive coaching and creates conscious leaders. All of that is okay, that's street cred, but there's something that touched me very deeply in my last trip to San Diego, which is about a year ago. So I was there for Christmas in his town, and he invited me over. There was a family gathering at his place, and he had his 90-year-old father-in-law and his teenage daughters and everything in between sitting in the living room. And, when you have family gatherings like that, you don't call in a complete stranger who doesn't know the family and, who's barely kind of visiting town, but he did. And I appreciated not just that gesture, but when I went into their home that evening, I sat down and Eric and I started talking, and slowly the girls came out from their rooms. Their nephew, who had been visiting from New Orleans, he came out, sat on the floor around me, and the almost 90-year-old father-in-law came and took a chair, and his wife came in, and we had this huddle of 3 different generations, or maybe even 4, sitting around, and they were very curious to hear my story. And this is for a family holiday gathering. And so I found that was an example of high emotional intelligence within his household. And clearly, Eric has worked on that. There's one thing to work on your own practice. There's one thing to go out and preach. But the ultimate test, as you all know, is when you can actually be able to influence the people that you live with, who'll see you day in and day out, right? So welcome to the show.
Yeah,
thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you, Jay. And thank you for that. It's a beautiful reflection. I really appreciate that, because I'm in the day-to-day stream of life, right? Here's my work, and here's my wife, and here's my children, and blah, blah. And so it's an unusual gift to have a perceptive, awakened friend drop in and have that perspective return. And I would say that it's particularly touching to me because you talked about, living in the community and living in the woods. And the reason I left my structured spiritual community 22 years ago, I guess, was because I had this epiphany or revelation, call it what you will, that my deeper spiritual life would awaken with wife and children in service to community. And so it was not something that I had contemplated my whole life, like, oh, I really want a wife and children. It was more like, oh God, I do not want a wife and children, because it would just suck the time and energy out of my pure spiritual practices. And that's true in a way, but it offers a different spiritual practice. And so anyway, I appreciate that reflection very much, very much.
Actually, I want to go into that. Because I know there's a lot of people listening here and a lot of people will be watching this after the fact who probably have had that question or are currently debating that thing about being a monk in the monastery up in the mountains versus somebody who's practicing the Dharma on the street. How has it been? I'm sure there's been ups and downs. There's been times when you question yourself on this decision.
Yeah, well, and you're asking this on week 6 of being quarantined with my wife and 2 daughters and a dog and a cat, right? So that mountain retreat is incredibly attractive right now. How has it been? before I got married, I got married, I was 32, 33. And I moved into I lived in the community, and I moved in when I was 19. So up until my marriage, so that is whatever it is, my entire 20s and then some, right? So 12, 13 years of very intensive practice. And the revelation for me essentially was, after 10 or so, 10, 11 years of practice, I took this year and went into this very deep, I built a cabin in the woods and really dropped in deep. And some of it was horrifying, living alone in the woods and being alone with my own fear and insanity and self-loathing. It was terrifying. And then some of it was liberating. But what happened was around a year mark, I had this revelation that I had become much more comfortable and attuned in my ability to connect with cosmic consciousness, with bliss consciousness, with transcendent consciousness. But emotionally, I was kind of a moron, And so while I was able to have these spiritual, beautiful expansiveness, my ego was still very stuck in this sense of identity and limited self. And so the revelation was that, family, living in close quarters, ongoing for, I lived with a teacher in a community for a dozen years, and living with my wife and kids was just the next level of spiritual refinement, right? Because it's just this perennial mirror to look into, right? Am I going to be patient? Am I going to be angry? Am I going to be compassionate? Am I going to be loving? So that training has been, the past 20, my daughter's 19 and 17, my wife and I have been married 21 years. And so this past 20 years has been the next level initiation in my refinement as a human being, let alone as a spiritual being. So I don't know that it's everyone. I don't know that it's for everyone. Um, I would have been a far less compassionate, far more detached, far less nuanced human being for not having done this.
That's something very interesting in the way you presented these two concepts. You said about being in the commune and then being in family, and I saw you putting your hands like that, like as if this was further along the trajectory of your path. So let's explore that a little bit. So one of the things that people are finding right now is that this pandemic, shelter in place, lockdown, they call different things around the world, has completely tossed them, derailed them, if you will, and they're struggling to find meaning. And so as you talk about these seemingly diametric opposite ways of living or being, but you seem to be alluding to the fact that they're actually down the same path. So can you talk about the sense of meaning that you find in both your past and your present, and how we can find a sense of meaning even in the midst of this unpredictable, unforeseen situation?
Yeah, that's, I think, you mentioned the cabin where I lived for the year-long retreat was in the mountains of New Mexico. So I don't know how well you know New Mexico, but they have the most spectacular skies. I mean, the sky, the clouds, the storms, and I lived right on, I built this cabin right on the edge on the slope at the top of a mountain. Down below was this great valley, and I could literally see the clouds coming in, the snow dropping down, moving up towards me. And I would, I had plenty of time to just look at the sky. I would look at the clouds, and inevitably I would start seeing, there's an elephant dancing with an antelope, and there's a crocodile slithering into a river, and there's my grandmother's face, and there's Abraham Lincoln. I might have had too much time, but it is inevitable that when we gaze from our sense of I into the world around us, we make meaning. We cannot help but see things and give them structure and purpose and meaning, right? There's people who find Abraham Lincoln in potato chips, And so it's one of the most profound elements of what it means to be a human being is to make meaning. And so I think that in this time where we're confined, it's important that we maintain the sense of meaning we had rather than allowing this meaning to make us. So, oh, this is horrible. Oh, this is not fair. Oh, this is not right. Oh, my life is destroyed. From a practice perspective, from a spiritual perspective, it's just the moment, right? The ability to look at the clouds and just see vapor moving through blue is actually a more profound capacity than to see an elephant dancing with an antelope. And so, yes, the sort of the central theme of my life is to know and understand the truth for myself and to live from compassion, right? To know and understand the truth for myself and to live from compassion. That's the sort of central theme that drives it all. And then, whether that's in the house with my family or whether that's on the plane, whether that's with clients, whether that's on the call in Zoom with you. But I think that folks are, we're so desperate to try and make meaning out of something that seems either meaningless or threatening that they're going overboard, right? They're assigning meaning where it isn't there. And the deeper work is to recognize that life is perennially unfolding. And we can choose the thread of meaning that we give it, right? And then when that runs out and it's no longer fulfilling to us, then we can allow the discomfort of no longer feeling that this is meaningful, not to be a pain or suffering, but allow the discomfort of, I don't find meaning in this, to be an inquiry. Where is meaning then? Meaning, just like the clouds, is not a fixed thing. Everything in life is impermanent. Everything is in motion. So is our sense of purpose and meaning. But I think rather than suffering and say, oh, I don't know what it is, be curious. We'll get into meditation. To me, meditation is this profound practice of curiosity. Curiosity. What is this? What is this? What is this? Not to label it, but to allow it to unfold and arise. So meaning is arising and meaning is what we give it. And when we can play back and forth between the given meaning and the arising meaning, we're not suffering.
So we're not suffering. So let's talk about that for a second. A lot of people are experiencing a lot of suffering. Right? Okay. And so one of the things that you were saying is about sitting with the discomfort.
Mm-hmm.
That's not an easy thing for people to digest and say that, I'm just going to, because, you heard about the motivational triad. Avoiding pain at all costs is the way that the human brain is evolved. But then what you're talking about, an ancient spiritual practice, is that sit with it. So can you give us some tips on how to sit with it and what would be the benefits of sitting with the discomfort and what would be some of the losses of avoiding the discomfort?
And you're right. If this was a marketing show, this would be the worst marketing show in the world, right? Let's talk about how to embrace discomfort. I was in Sri Lanka at the beginning of March, so month and a half ago, and I came back to the U.S. on the 13th of March and went right into quarantine, right? And haven't left the house since then. So whatever it's been, 6 weeks or so. But I came back and I was really ill. It wasn't COVID, but I had something happen in my stomach and I was so incredibly sick. I hadn't been that sick in 15 years. And it lasted, 10 days or so. Not to get, too graphically weird, but I mean, there were 3 or so nights where I literally slept on the bathroom floor because I couldn't, I just needed to be there. I couldn't any rate. I'm glad that was a lot of discomfort and actually profound pain. I mean, it was pain unlike I had experienced in recent memory. But I didn't really suffer, and I don't mean, it's not like I have some kind of saintly powers. It's really just, what does a meditation practice do over time? It's allowing me to embrace reality, to say yes to what's happening. And so the pain is a series of physical signals. The suffering is a meaning that I assign to it that is, you know, where does suffering come from? The suffering comes from two places. One is, I don't want it, so I'm pushing it away. Now, you know, any of us who's meditated long enough is going to have knee pain. I don't care what culture you come from. At some point, the knee is going to hurt, or the low back's going to hurt, something's going to hurt. And so we have to learn to, like when the knee pain, if you sit cross-legged and your knee hurts, there's actually this kind of tendency to almost try to move away from the knee. Like, if I can just push the knee away. There isn't such a thing. We are the knee. The pain is real. And so the benefit of saying yes to the discomfort is that I am awake to life. The detriment of pushing it away is that I suffer more deeply and I cut off elements of reality. And so if I do that with my knee pain, if I do that with my stomach pain, if I do that with the discomfort of the house, I am slowly but surely detaching from life. Now I'm less available to experience the wonder. I'm less available to experience insight. I'm less available to connect meaningfully with other people. And I'm less available to have creative ideas that arise when I'm in touch with life. And so suffering is somewhat optional. And I know that people listen to it go, well, boy, if you're sitting on a ventilator and you're barely breathing, that's suffering. No, that's pain. That's fear. That's anxiety, all legitimate. The suffering, the layer that we add on top of it it's a little bit optional. And the invitation for folks is to actually be curious and to drop in the Zen tradition. They talk, you know, there's a frog sits by the well, frog jumps in, plop. Whatever the hell the Zen thing means, I don't know what they mean by that. But, you know, the idea that it's simply a frog jumping in and a plop. It's just a sound and a sight. And when we can actually drop below the meaning-making, storytelling, discursive, narrative, you know, kind of experience that we're having and be an experience, suffering diminishes, power arises, connection strengthens, and love grows.
Yeah, you know, the love grows part is been my personal favorite in my personal experience, that from your sitting with your pain and from your realization, you can actually then go on to help other people to reduce their suffering. So your pain is your message. And so, yeah, it's an extension of what you said. It's basically, it's love in action. So,
and love at some point is this all-inclusive force that doesn't distinguish, right? When we talk about unconditional love, it means it is the sense of connection without conditions around it. And as I reduce the conditions of my pleasure and accept the conditions of my reality, bizarrely, that is an act of love. And so we can concentrate and focus, but the mind has to eventually get open enough for the heart to come through, right? So truth and love.
Beautiful. Talking of truth and love, Eric, would you lead us through a practice, please?
Absolutely. Cross-legged in my little chair. All right, so let's switch gears from active cognitive to more receptive. So I invite everyone to close your eyes. And when you close your eyes, you are shifting your awareness from the external stimuli to the internal reality, internal experience. So close your eyes, and in particular, as you close your eyes, I'd like you to close them with little to no effort. There are little tiny muscles in the eyelids, and they require almost no effort whatsoever to keep them closed. And with your eyes closed, that same effortless ease with which your eyes are closed, allow that effortless ease to extend to your eyebrows and your forehead and your cheekbones and cheeks. Relax the muscles around your lips themselves, the nose, let your whole face be relaxed, but all that means is just effortless. Your scalp, your ears, primarily just neutral. There's no need to scowl or smile, to wonder or furrow your eyebrows. Just allow that whole region, your face, from your top of your head to your forehead and eyebrows and eyes, lips, even your tongue. Let your tongue rest effortlessly on the floor of the mouth. And allow your breathing to be normal. And normal breathing isn't always consistent. And as your face unwinds, releases its gripping and tension, and as you remove effort from the muscles of your face, you can probably feel that effortlessness spreading below your face and neck and shoulders. But before we go into a complete effortless state, I'd like you to make some effort. In particular, an effort to take 3 full, deep breaths. A full breath, by the way, begins right in the diaphragm, in the belly. You have to soften your belly and breathe directly through your nostrils and nose, down your chest into your belly. Inhale, inflate, rising, extending your body, fully inhaling, and then exhaling, releasing all the air out, expelling, and pressing your belly in. Take 3 of those deep, full breaths at your own pace. And when you're done with those 3 breaths, just let your breath return to its normal, natural rhythm. Whatever that is right now, and that rhythm may change from moment to moment. I'd like you to picture and imagine, feel your spine straightening. It's not with effort or strain, but with grace and intention. Allow your head to rise as though it's gently pulled towards the heavens. And even as your spine is gracefully erect and your head is upright, your shoulders descend away from your ears, relaxing, releasing, unwinding, effortless. And as you breathe and exhale, releasing the muscles around your chest, neck, shoulders, upper back, arms. Letting your arms hang heavy, effortless. Your hands unwind, your fingers maintain a slight curl. Allow your muscles in the midsection, your hips, your waist, your groin, your buttocks. Let them be effortless, unwinding, releasing the gripping, smooth muscles. The quads and thighs, your shins and calves, your feet and toes. And you're experiencing the twin forces that guide us, the force of intention, the upright spine, and the force of surrender, the release, and the effortlessness. And this is the dance of life: intention, purposeful, and surrender, open and releasing. And we move constantly between intention and surrender, between force and form, between moving and pausing. And I'd like you to gather your attention, draw your mind, bring it back from all the places to this place. And draw your mind, gathering it from all different spaces to this space, this body. And draw your mind from all different times, the past and future, and bring it to this time. And you are here now. And thoughts arise as they always do, and they pass as they always do. Sensations arise, and sensations pass. The force of intention is to pay attention, and the force of surrender is to let it flow. I'd like you to bring your awareness and attention to your nostrils and your nasal passages. And pay attention now to the sensation of air as it flows into your nostrils. Feel the sensation around the edges of the nostrils. Feel the air as it goes up your nasal passages and sinuses. And perhaps you're already beginning to notice the difference between the inhale and the exhale. The inhale tends to be cooler, drier. And the air you exhale is warmer and more moist, changed by the chemistry of being in your lungs. And the noticing is not with effort. Notice the sensation and relax your eyes. Notice the sensation and relax your shoulders. And notice with even less effort now, just noticing. Notice the sensations and relax your mouth. And now picture, imagine, and feel that this air that you're breathing, this oxygenated stream of air, prana, life force, is flowing directly into your head, into your brain. Picture, imagine, and feel that the air is actually flowing into your brain, oxygenating the entire cranial space. Oxygen is combustible. The energy actually releases heat and fire, life force. Picture, imagine, and feel as you're breathing streams of air flowing into your head, your brain being nourished, oxygenated, awakened. Your thinking can become sharper. Your insight can become deeper. The fog of confusion lifts as you breathe these inhalations directly into your head. The swirling thoughts moved around, they're impermanent. Below the swirling thoughts is the stream of motion, air flowing in, oxygen combusting, energy arising. And we're going to move our attention now. This time, picture, imagine, and feel as you inhale that you're inhaling directly up your nose, down your throat, and into your belly. Literally filling your belly with this prana, life force, oxygen, energy. Breathing into and around your navel. The dantian, the hara, it's got different names, the center of gravity. Right around your navel. This is the seat of power. This is the seat of courage. This is the center of gravity from which we move in the world. This is our sense of stability. Breathing in and oxygenating, energizing, empowering, awakening, a light growing right in your lower belly. A comforting power. A power that bodes motion and yet requires no movement. A power that gives you force to act and serve, to move and create. Breathing into the lower belly. And notice what you're noticing in your body. Allow the force of intention to keep your spine erect, your head upright, your attention true. And allow the force of surrender to release your shoulders and face. Effortless attention. Strong intention. Effortless attention. And now move your awareness to your heart, your chest area. Picture, imagine, and feel as you inhale now that you're inhaling directly into your heart. Oxygen, prana, life force, energy. This is not just breath. This is spiritual essence. Flowing into your heart. Growing as a ball of light. Filling up your heart. Your seat of love, compassion. Breathing into the care. Breathing into the great passion of your life. The big dreams of your life are what the heart wants. The sense of direction and purpose comes from the heart. The love that is growing is love for self, love for others, and love for life. Picture, imagine, and feel that energy in the heart expanding, growing, extending, reaching up to the oxygenated head and down to your energized belly. I'd like you to picture, imagine, and feel these three centers of light becoming integrated. Head, heart, gut. Awake, energized, integrated. And you may have already begun to notice, or maybe it's rising for you as a new realization, but you cannot contain this. It extends beyond your body, up to your head, down to your toes, extending this luminous, integrated head, heart, and gut energy, love, wisdom, and courage, expanding as a light beyond your skin, filling up the space right around you, your auric field, extending to fill the room, growing behind you, in front of you, above you, below you, side to side, expanding to fill the city block, the state you're in, the country you're in, the continent you're in, expanding, extending the entire globe, lit with the emanating energy that extending from the core of your being. And you are, in fact, extending beyond the globe, out into space, infinite light and infinite space, radiating out and right back within to you. Allow yourself for a moment effortlessly to sit here, face relaxed, body upright and yet effortless, radiating, extending, receiving. Now begin to draw yourself back from as far as you've gone, back in your neighborhood, back in your room, back in your body. You are back, contained, defined, but not separate. In a moment, we're going to open our eyes and shift back to conversational mode. But know that at any time, these forces of intention and surrender are the forces at play for you to be at choice. And so bring your awareness to your hands and wiggle your fingers, bring them to your feet and wiggle your toes. Move your eyes from side to side. We're going to return to the here and now. When you're ready, take a breath, come back into your body and open your eyes.
Wow. That was so relaxing, so clarifying, so centering. Thank you.
My pleasure. Truly, my pleasure.
Yeah, clearly it's come from lots of years of personal practice. It came so naturally to you. And I also love the way you explained, the three things: the head, the heart, and the gut. And I love it: the wisdom, the love, and the courage. Yeah, I love that. And how there's the third thing also you said about that to me, those were all like progressions, and the integration of those three things are really the way to find complete balance in our lives and to show up in a way that we're fully present. That's fantastic, folks. So now is the time for you all to ask questions, or ask for you to please punch in your questions in the Q&A section of the Zoom app you have. And also those of you watching us through YouTube live, you can just go punch it into the chat window, and I have a colleague who's going to copy paste that over here. So while people are queuing up their questions, Eric, I have a thing that I've watched your TED Talk, and I've also watched some of the videos that you've got. One of the things that you mentioned, which is I think very relevant for this day and age, is this idea of creating conversations with a safe person.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that, please?
My training as a human, besides my spiritual training, involved several things, not the least of which was to solve problems, right? So when I went to school, testing is really problem solving, right? And learning is sort of acquisition of knowledge so you can solve problems. And so I assume that any good conversation would be one in which I can demonstrate two things: how smart I am and how good I am at solving the problem. Um, and that's incredibly valuable, but not necessarily the generation of safety. Um, when uh, when I refer to somebody who's safe, I'm referring to somebody who has enough wherewithal within themselves that they can be with me in my awkwardness and discomfort, in my confusion and uncertainty, and not necessarily try to fix it, but allow me to unfold in their presence. Safe means that I won't be belittled. Safe means that I won't be fixed. And safe means that I won't be embarrassed, right? To be with a safe person is a profound gift for you, for me, for my wife, for my kids, for anybody. To be safe for someone else means that you allow them to be who they are in that moment. Especially in these times when we are tried and tested, pushed and prodded, threatened and fearful, it's really important to find a safe person with whom we can be, with whom we can share, and with whom we can unfold and find our own power, because that's the ultimate gift that a safe person gives to the person they're with. When I'm a safe person to someone, or someone that's safe for me, when my wife listens to me and doesn't try to fix me. My wife is a psychologist. She's brilliant, but she's trained just like the rest of us. Let me take your pain away. Let me try to make this better for you. When my wife can sit there and just allow me to figure it out with her inquiry, with her curiosity, with her love, at the end of that, I feel more powerful. I am empowered. That's the gift. And we need that now. We always need that. But in particular, when we feel disempowered, where we're hiding and sheltering, it's important to be a safe person. As a leader, as a parent, as a spouse, as a lover. I love that you brought that up. You know, we want to help others, and we think that helping others means giving them solutions and removing their pain by our wisdom. More powerful is to give them space.
Yes, because yes, absolutely. Because we have no idea, no matter how long we've known them, exactly what they're going through. So they have the wisdom and they have the data to make their choices. And I think it's beautiful, both in terms of, I think the two things that I've taken away from this little segment here. One is to find a safe person for ourselves, because we need that very much, because we need to be able to communicate this process that we are thrown into without really given a choice. And then the second thing is to be that safe person, you know, in different, like you said, different realms, whether it's the community, whether it's your family, whether it's your workplace, etc., for your friends even.
Yeah, and that B one, I'll just add one more thing. When my wife comes to me, for example, or my daughters come to me, and I'm not even talking about employees or clients, I'm just going to talk about my immediate family, right? When my wife comes to me and she has a problem, I have this urge to want to try and, I feel such powerful desire to want to relieve her from it. It takes real effort to not like, dive in with all this capacity and all this training and all the skill that I have. And I get agitated and nervous because I don't want her to suffer. And so it takes discipline for me to like, reel it back, pull it back, and give her the safety to unfold herself and to discover it within herself. And that may take a little bit longer, by the way, right? But I don't know that all my genius and skill is really that good. So part of the reason is not only that I want to be a fixer, but I don't want her to suffer. And so I have to reel that in. Yeah, to be the safe person for another. I mean, what a gift, Jay. You know, if we just have that as sort of the piece that folks really hone in on in these times, be the safe person for others by not capitulating to by me not capitulating to my own anxiety and fear, and creating a safe place where the other can feel heard not belittled, seen, not judged, and respected enough to know that they have answers, I guarantee you the experience around the house will go in a much more positive direction for everyone.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah. Beautiful. I have a comment here, which is really interesting. So Catherine says, I do not have enough knowledge to ask any questions, but offer great gratitude for yet another day of learning. I think this session has been so profound. It's very unusual. I mean, by this time I would have a whole plethora of questions that we can't even get through. We don't have time for this. But I think what has happened, and I'm being very, very candid about, what I'm experiencing, and I can relate to the audience. This has been such a gift, this session, this conversation, that we are in the state of complete completeness, fulfillment, that there's not an urge to get into that left brain of, I need something fixed. I need something to be asked. I need something to be deliberated on. Having said that, I have a question here. So there's a person actually from your neck of the woods, from San Diego. Melissa is asking, do you have meetings and teachings here in San Diego?
No.
So Melissa, there's your answer. You got to come online to my show. And I'm going to definitely, as you can tell, Eric and I can go on for hours. We just only talked about a sliver of things. So yeah, so we're going to bring you on, Eric. So, so let's put that on your calendar.
Anytime, Jay, you're one of my heroes. So anytime we can spend time together, that's a gift.
Yeah, thank you. And yesterday, one of the things, by the way, is I was deliberating with a friend as to what is going to be the future of this, because I did the first 15 days and that came to an end. The curfew was extended and people said, no, you can't stop. So I said, okay, listen, I don't want to be the drug of your new drug of choice. Yesterday you were watching Netflix and today you're watching the Jay Show. So I want to bring in friends. But then now this is going to come to an end on Monday. So obviously, where do we go from here? And I'm going to take a break. But the intention is to continue these conversations. It's been so meaningful and so beautiful. And we've created this little Sangha virtually across the world, and just amazing friends. I mean, this has been a gift to be able to bring back people I've collected, I've gathered. And I was reflecting yesterday, many of you at the end of the conversations, and you hit me up on Facebook and WhatsApp and tell me, Jay, you're amazing. But here's what I want you to learn, guys. I'm not amazing. It's about who I've chosen to surround myself with. Mm-hmm. As you've seen in the last 13 days, and you'll see in the next couple of days, and maybe even further, this is a choice. When you choose to sit with people who are having these depth of conversations with themselves, who are able to be vulnerable despite their position, despite whatever else is going on in the world outside, that's somebody who's going to be that benchmark. That's somebody who's going to pull you up to that next level. Who even, like, you'll also see tomorrow, I have a friend, Kiran Mani, VP of Google. He's the managing director of retail for all of Google. And so he's a guy, a dear friend of mine. We spend a lot of hours together, not as frequently as I wish, but when we do, we go on for a good amount of time. And he's the person I check in, and he's like a mirror for me. He's seen me on my journey, and he's somebody who will hold me accountable to the integrity of my spiritual path. And Eric is one of those people, and so the rest of the people on the show. So if there was one thing you want to take away from this series that we've seen so far, is who are you surrounding yourself with? And today Eric took it up to another level. And he said, can you find people that you feel safe with? And conversely, can you offer to be that safe person for people? So my 3 big takeaways from this conversation, guys, is number 1 is know and feel the truth and live with compassion. That's the first thing that I took away from the first part of the conversation. The second part of the conversation is about embracing what we're going through, embracing the discomfort, and let that be the source of our wisdom. And then we go out and share that, and that'll be a source of alleviation of pain and suffering for other people, suffering more particularly. And then the third part, as we just talked about, is be that safe person and find the safe person in life. So those are the 3 big takeaways. Eric, how would you like to offer 3 things for people as they are still stuck in quarantine, God knows for how much longer, to deal with what we're going through?
I think that we've had a beautiful discussion, and there's a lot in there for folks to take. Your three takeaways, I think, are wonderful. I would only add one thing, and that is forgiveness. Forgiveness um, is a very profound spiritual practice because it's an invitation for us to soften the grip of the ego need to be right. And when we're in close quarters with people and it gets frustrating, forgiveness goes a long way. We're all in a weird place collectively. I mean, we're all pretty freaking weird to begin with. Just being human is pretty weird, but we are extra weird right now, given that most of the ways that we have to contend with that weirdness or to deal with our idiosyncrasies have been limited or taken away entirely, right? So we are facing our idiosyncrasies with people in a way that's really difficult. So be really forgiving of other people, knowing that they're struggling, and be really forgiving of ourselves, knowing that this is a real struggle. And if we can practice this deep sense of forgiveness, everything goes a lot more easily. Just a lot more easily. So that's the one thing I would add. And then practically, I have Four Virtues of a Leader is a book that's available on Amazon. I have Leadership Breakdown, a book that's going to come out in early summer. And that gets directly into wisdom, love, and courage. So that the piece you pulled out, people can go now to leadershipbreakdown.com and download sort of the 10 top reasons for leadership breakdown. But it's a book I'm writing right now on how to integrate this kind of conscious leadership. So that's practical, but I think from a practice perspective, forgive yourself, forgive others constantly. This is the time to do that.
Yeah, beautiful. What a beautiful way to end this. Eric, I'm going to post all these links that you've just heard in the bottom of the video. This is all being recorded. It's going to be available for you to replay. And you can find other resources at the bottom in the description. So folks, we will see you tomorrow with my friend, like I said, Kiran Mani, VP of Google. Until then, be safe, be well, and stay in quarantine. Thank you, Eric, for your time.
Thank you, Jay.